Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of The Power of Story. If you're tuning in on Thrive After Sports, thank you for tuning in there. We have a very special treat for you today. The man himself is here, Mr. Steve Davis, Associate Vice President of Engagement at the University of Minnesota. What's going on, Steve?
What's going on, Taj, man? Appreciate you having me on.
Oh, it's an honor, man. It's an honor. You know, I've had the pleasure of connecting with a lot of great people lately. And just so you know, this all came about organically. You know, for anybody listening, I was scrolling through LinkedIn, networking, doing my thing, posting content as I normally do. I came across this man, Steve. I'm like, Associate Vice President of Engagement. Now, that is something I have never seen before. That's a title I've never seen. So I reached out and I was just very straightforward, like, man, Steve, I want to hear about what your work is about, man. Let's connect. We ended up getting on the phone, chopping it up, cracking each other up for about 30 minutes. And since then, we've had many great conversations, and I knew I had to have this man on. So we're going to dive in deep to this story. Steve actually played football at University of Minnesota before he came back. Everything came full circle. But I'm going to let you just quickly introduce yourself, Steve. Can you just tell the people more about who Steve Davis is?
Absolutely, man. And it's been a pleasure, likewise, to kind of meet with you. And seems like a perfect timing to kind of bring the collision of minds and thoughts around what we're going to be talking about today. But for me, you know, I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri. Came up, you know, from a background where, you know, I was, like most athletes, just involved in a lot of different things. And, you know, had the opportunity to take my talents to the next level. And I think for me and the folks that I grew up around, everyone kind of looked up to me and thinking that, you know, I was going to be the person that made it, so much so that, you know, I put the pressure on myself more so than anybody else to, you know, be that person and make sure that I live up to the promise or fulfill that destiny that is something that I think was bestowed upon me, you know. And I came to the University of Minnesota, had an opportunity to play right away, got that opportunity and decided to come here and, you know, play for 4 years, was a freshman All-American, ended up being a senior captain, really enjoyed my time here. But there were some things, you know, that didn't go the way that I would have hoped as I was leaving out the university. You know, and as everybody says, you know, everyone wants to make it to the next level. Only 3% of us do. But I thought I was part of that 3%. Like, you know, it was kind of a destiny that I thought I was going to fulfill. And, you know, that quickly abrupted and it didn't happen. And it really started me on this journey of where I'm currently at now and where I'm continuing to go with building relationships with people like you and just figuring out the best way of like helping and connecting with people.
Man, Steve, thank you for sharing that. First of all, I forgot you were from St. Louis. I think that's why we connect. That's where my grandma's from. You know, hey man, we don't break it out. Don't start doing it to him. Hey, if you're not watching this on video, make sure you tune into the video so you can see that move that Steve just hit. You don't know nothing about that. We taking it back. That's early 2000s, man.
We still do it every day.
That's right.
I lost a little bit of my slang, you know, my day and all that stuff because I've been in Minnesota so long, but yeah.
Oh, man. We might be related, man. I don't know. My grandma's from St. Louis. That might be why we connect. Hey. But in all seriousness, man, we're off to a fast start because we haven't even really gotten into your story yet, but you're already sharing some powerful stuff. Like you said, man, you said you were putting that pressure on yourself going into your career at Minnesota and thinking about like, and so many of us do that, man. So let's get into it. We know how many athletes, they put that pressure, like, I'm going to change the trajectory of my family's history. I'm going to be the first college grad. I'm going to make it to the league. And this is all too common, man. So you had a great career, it sounds like, in Minnesota. But when you came back home, what was it like when you felt like you didn't necessarily meet some of the expectations that you had put for yourself?
Yeah, man. I mean, it was hard, to be blunt honest. I mean, just thinking about it and the mindset that I have and the expectations that I had of myself and, you know, wanting to live up to that, going back home and, you know, feeling the support from my family and friends. We actually had a draft party for myself and I actually didn't ask for that, but we set one up. And, you know, to me, that felt like one of the most embarrassing moments of my life, you know, having friends and family around, not getting your name called. You know what I mean? And that kind of humbled me a lot, but it also made me just kind of think about, you know, how I can respond and how I can kind of bounce back from that. One thing that really kind of stuck with me when I was in St. Louis is that, because I felt this pressure and I added this pressure on myself of that thinking what everybody else is thinking right now, or what are they going to say? Are they going to keep asking Steve, like, why are you not on the team right now? Like, what's going on? And I did everything on my part to try to make sure that things happen. And, it could be a number of different excuses as to why I didn't make it or why, things happened the way it did. But, I feel like things happen for a reason. And while I was back home and just thinking about like trying to move on and what that even means, going back and living with my parents for a little bit, but just thinking like, I just graduated from college, I had a great career in football and I'm supposed to be somewhere, but not here. And it was a humbling feeling to come back to the place where it started and see that I wasn't in a place where I wanted to be. And that the people around me were continuing to ask questions and, just kind of, edge on, not in a way that's like trying to demean or anything. They're coming from a positive standpoint. But for me, it was another blow and another blow every time, someone would mention something or ask something. Like it got to a point where I just didn't want to see people, because I just kind of felt that I was disappointing them because I was disappointed in myself. So I quickly figured out an exit strategy to get out of St. Louis. I was looking at a lot of different places and, got connected with a few of my fraternity brothers that helped me to think about an opportunity down in Atlanta. And I was like, all right, I'm young. I'll figure this out. Let's start this life thing and let me get out of St. Louis because I want to start fresh. But little did I know how hard that was going to be too.
Yeah, you talked about that starting fresh and you don't even know what's going to unfold, especially if you're not prepared for it, which is why I know you do a lot of the work you do now, which is why I do what I do. How did you start to find that clarity? Because I know eventually, you talked about how tough it is when people are asking you, what are you going to do next? Why aren't you on the team? And you have to deal with that. And you talked about going into isolation, which is huge, man. People who know my story, I share a lot of that too, where you just feel like, I don't want to talk to anybody. I don't want anyone to know what I'm going through. Half the time, you don't even know what you're going through. So you can't even explain it to people, or you feel like you can't. But how did you start to carve out a lane for yourself and really create that next chapter of your life, man?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's still a journey, and I feel like everybody continues on their journey. Nobody has it figured out. Life is not an outcome. It's a process. So for me, it's like thinking about at that point, willing to try and learn and grow and figure out the next phases of my life was something that I was inherently already prepared for. I was a scholar. I was into a lot of different things while I was playing. I was in the Black Student Union. I was in a fraternity. So I was able to branch out and kind of think about how I could dip my toes into different things. So trying to do something new wasn't, something that was like brand new for me. However, just thinking about it from that standpoint of going from where I thought I was going to be already kind of, in a great situation, going to a great university and having all the resources available to me, like truly trying to figure it out on my own. And not knowing where to really like turn to. I think it was like, for me, a lot of internal conversations. I'm an only child. So, when this happened, like I internalized a lot of things. I wouldn't like kind of showing my emotions. Like it took me a point to like where I officially like, I cried, man. I let it out. Like, all right, I didn't make what I wanted to do. Let me get this stress off my back. And once I let that go, it just was like, all right, I got my degree. I'm going to make something of my life. Let me just go and figure it out. And what I think is important is that the failure is what really has built me and continues to build me. And this is why I tell a lot of people, like, don't be afraid to fail. Like I was afraid to fail at the beginning, but what I realized is that the failure is what really helped me to figure out what the next step is and how I can learn from that. So failing of not getting into the NFL, when I first got down to Atlanta, trying to find a job opportunity, the first interview that I had after college, you know, I had 3 or 4 of them. I thought I was doing well, made it to the final stage and didn't get the job. So I'm like, I'm down here in Atlanta. Now I'm living with a fraternity brother. And I'm like, okay, what am I going to do in my life now? Like I'm here and nothing's happening the way I want it to happen. But it builds that perseverance, you know what I mean? And that's something that we learn from being an athlete and having to strive and drive towards a bigger goal and being willing to do the dirty work. Like I was using that mentality to kind of keep me going and apply for other jobs and talk with people, trying to network to the point where I eventually founded an alumni who owned a company down in Atlanta. And we just kind of connected. We have a conversation. We talked about what it was like, you know, to play at the University of Minnesota. What's life like now? Talked about the next stage. He had family, he had a house, and like kind of preparing me and mentoring me to that point. And he gave me my first job. And to me, I would be forever grateful for that, because it's like, you know, we don't know what we don't know, and we're trying to figure it out on our own. But what I really learned from that standpoint is it's really about the people and the connections that you make that's really going to help you prepare and propel you through life. You can learn a lot from a lot of different people. And the more that you're open to connecting, just as you were as a teammate with anybody and learning a little bit more about their backgrounds, keeping that spirit alive and connecting with folks will always help you. You know, you never know where your journey's taking you. You just got to be a part of the process and be willing to enjoy the process. So.
Like you said, life is not an outcome. It's a process. That was bars right there, sir. That was big bars. You know, and there was so many gems you drop right now, man, because I'm a student. I'm listening to you speak, and I'm learning myself through your journey and looking at how similar it was to some of the things I was going through. I want to take it back to one of the first things you said, where you said you allow yourself to process those emotions and to cry. That is such an important thing for people to hear, because we have a few things working against us. And I know you already know this. You know this, Steve. Number one, we're Black men, right? Black, male, and an athlete. That's like 3 strikes to say you shouldn't be emotional. You shouldn't process what you're going through. You got to stomach it all. And I know someone listening to this and someone who just heard what you just shared needed to hear that, to show that it's okay. And that's probably that's one of the most important things to help you get started when you're done playing, is to process some of those things that you're going through. Like you said, if you have to close the door and let those tears out, you really can't move forward until you do that, because you're just going to be carrying the baggage. So when you shared that, man, I almost fell out of my seat, because I don't hear a lot of people talking about that. And I thank you for sharing that, because I know someone hearing this now or 10 years from now is going to have permission to do that. So thank you for that, first and foremost.
Absolutely.
The other thing you shared, man, there's so much there. You talked about you made a decision. So after you process, you made a decision to move forward. You weren't like waiting for someone to knock on the door and just hand you a check. You said, I have to go build my life. I have to go create it. And I appreciate you sharing that too, because once you're able to process, you make the decision, you go for it, and you make it happen. And you put yourself in position to be great. So I wanted to ask you too, man, before we move forward, because I definitely want to hear more about your current role. But during that time, do you feel like there's anything that the university, because now you're working, you know, you get to see behind the curtain of a university and an athletic department. Do you feel like there's anything that could have been done better at that time on the university's part to prepare you? Or do you feel like there's anything you could have done better as far as engaging with the university?
Yeah, I think, you know, on both of those questions, the answer is yes. I think, you know, at that point in my life when things had ended, you know, I was not in my own way, I was not reaching back out to the university at that standpoint to say, hey, you know, could you help me move on to the next point? I was just like, I'm done. I'm going to move on. I'm going to try to figure this out on my own. However, I think, you know, looking back at this, it's like when you're there, and I think this is across the board at any institution, you know, that folks are going to, when you're there, it's so hard to prepare your mind. Like the resources are available, but it's so hard to prepare your mind for when the sport is going to be done. Like you're so busy with your practice schedule, with study hall, with trying to do some school in between all of that, that you really don't have that much time to think and to process what a future is going to look like. You're in the here and now. You're focused on the here and now. Your schedule is regimented. They're telling you where to go. They're telling you where your classes are at. Like, people are helping you with your life. And then when you graduate, nobody's there to help you. And it's like, okay, well, I'm so used to somebody telling me where to go or what my schedule is going to be or what class I'm going to take next or how I'm going to get to this job. But nobody's there to do that. And this is where I kind of felt that, there are resources at universities, and they have different, whether it's Letterman clubs or other things available, or where they are there to potentially support you as an alumni. I felt that at the time that there were resources available when I was a student, but honestly wasn't really paying attention to it because, in one ear, out the other, just kind of focusing on, I'm going to get my degree, but I'm thinking I'm going to make it to the league and I'll let the rest of this stuff kind of sort itself out. I'm not the only one that thought like that. You know what I mean? And I think, what really I think is a miss on my part is not really truly listening to those conversations and those mentors and truly connecting with them, and building that network before I decided to leave. And also, I didn't think also, and I think maybe this is across the board as well. Some of these institutions have these departments in place, and they talk very, very well about the things that they want to do and bring these cliches and these good talking points. But when you look at the resources that are allocated and you look at the true support that comes from them, sometimes it doesn't feel like it's really genuine and authentic to really connect with the student athletes to help them understand, like, all right, this is a true resource that I can use, instead of just calling them and say, hey, I need a job. They can say, hey, how do I get a job? How do I prepare for an interview? Like, what am I supposed to wear? I never put on a suit and tie outside of just going to a post-game interview. Like, how do I prepare for this stuff? Like, all these other life skill stuff that I took for granted, I think colleges can really help. And I think some colleges are doing this well, but for the most part, it's not adequately resourced. And because of that, the student athletes suffer. They spend so much time focusing on the here and now that when the here and now is gone, then they're trying to backtrack, they're trying to reach back. But at that point, it's kind of too late because they're not even prepared for, moving to a new state or buying a house or starting to rent. Or when you get your first paycheck, man, when I got my first paycheck, when taxes came out, I was like, they never told me about this. You know what I mean? So you just think about the incremental steps of life and how to prepare for that. The other students on campus, they get to kind of figure out the life skills portion of their next stages of their life, whether it's going through internships or, building networks and collaborating and a lot of different things. Most of the time, student athletes don't have that opportunity because you're so, like I say, focused on your schedule, you're regimented, you're waiting on somebody to tell you what to do next, that you don't kind of think for yourself. But you still need that support, even when you're trying to think for yourself, especially after you graduate, to help you transition. And transition is a big piece because I think what's really lost within the equation of some of these supports of these departments is the identity piece. And you mentioned this a lot in your book, where as a student athlete, you've been doing this, your schedule's been regimented, you're so used to being or moving in a certain way your entire life that all of a sudden that piece of you is gone. And before you can do anything else, you have to reconcile with that. And you have to understand what that means and how to differentiate what an athletic identity is to what your true identity could be in the future. And that's hard. You can't do that by yourself. So, there's a lot there. I mean, I just mentioned a lot of stuff, but I think, it's twofold. I could have done more to listen and learn and tap into those resources. But at the same time, I still feel like those departments are there to really help and support the student athletes. However, they're not adequately resourced and not thinking about it in a true bigger picture about how we can really impact the lives of these student athletes after they graduate. Because if they do it well, and some places do, if you do it well, those people are coming back. They're sharing stories. They're building mentorships. And if anything, that's going to help that university even more because those are positive stories that come back, you know?
That's right, man. Yeah, that's a great point you bring up at the first of all, that was a lot of gems being shared right there. As always, every time you speak, man, some fire comes out. But what you shared there at the end is so key, where it's like there's benefit for athletic departments and different professional teams to continue to pour into athletes after they're done playing or make sure they have a smoother transition. Because like you said, they're a product of that university, of that team. So their representations, they have the spotlight on them. You might as well put some resources, even if that means financially, towards helping athletes out. So that's some great points, man. I want to talk more about how you, because I'm curious to know how your role is currently. And I know you have some exciting things coming up in the future as well. So what happened after you get the mentorship, you start connecting with that guy, you know, you get your feet wet. What was the next steps that led you to your current role at Minnesota?
Yeah, I mean, this journey for me has been a journey that has been truly about failing and learning and growing. Because first job, you know, got from an alumni, wasn't the job that I wanted, no, but it was a job, got me started. It taught me, you know, how to, you know, get things started. I got my first apartment, you know what I mean? Bought my first car by myself, you know what I mean? Just like learning these different things and getting connected with that person. But obviously, you know, at that point, it was, you know, me trying to figure out, I got this degree in mass communication. I was trying to do some marketing and graphic design at the time. And I was interviewing a lot of places, not getting jobs, you know, trying to learn how to network. I wasn't the best networker at that time. I was trying to learn how to network. And I was failing miserably at all of those things to the point where, you know, it's like, all right, I'm going to pick up my pieces again and let's try somewhere else because this is not where I want to be. I know there's something else. And, you know, once again, decided to take a chance. At the time, my wife, you know, she ran track at the U of M as well. So she came down, we're on this journey together. So we both decide to move out to Maryland. And in Maryland, she has some family there, you know, once again, picking up the pieces, going to a place I've never been and lived before, but just trying to figure it out, trying to learn, end up finding some job opportunities and things that I wanted to do, but it wasn't in the right industry. But because of the things that I've learned from Atlanta and learning a little bit more about networking, I started connecting with a lot more people. And those people started connecting me to other people. And then I realized just how really powerful that connection is when you can find others that can relate to either your story or the things that you're trying to do. And I found more alumni. And to me, that was just like the shining light that kind of put a light bulb off in my head to say, you know, there is this power, you know, with these connections and how we can really kind of connect and help each other. And I'm starting to figure this out because I just have a perseverance and a drive to kind of figure it out on my own. But I know that's not the case for everybody, you know, and I'm like, how can I think about this in relation to some of my teammates that graduated with master's degrees? And this is during the recession back in 2008, 2009. So folks is struggling, trying to find jobs that they want to. They work in retail. And, you know, I just kind of felt bad. So I'm like, well, if I can figure this out on my own, I think there's legs to this. But how can I, you know, expand this? Because what I was doing at the time, I wasn't really passionate about. I felt like there was something more because when I'm learning more about connecting with people and just having conversations, I felt that joy. And then when I felt that I was starting to help other people see that the connections I was making and they started to reach into their networks and make connections, that there was something there that we can work with. So long story short, man, I never thought I was coming back to Minnesota after I graduated. But after I started connecting more and more with alumni, I saw the opportunity that was there to really, you know, bridge a gap and bring this connection of people and bodies to help them realize the resources that are available. And it kind of clicked to me too, because it's like, you know, I left, went to Atlanta, went to DC, tried to figure it out on my own. But for me, when you choose an institution, like you're married to that institution, whether you like it or not, because you spent your money or you spent your time and you're getting your education. So you better take advantage of those resources that are there. And I was like, Minnesota, they came into my house and told me about all these Fortune 500 companies and all these great things that are available in the city. But I'm like, I didn't take advantage of that. And if I didn't take advantage of that, I feel like a lot of other people are not going to take advantage of that either. And that needs to change. So that's what really drove me to like, all right, well, I want to figure out how to connect the dots for alumni so that they know, there's opportunities out here for us to connect to these resources, to connect to each other, really build upon that, because we can't do this by ourselves. Everybody's going to go through that, that transition phase and try to figure out the next step. And I wanted to figure out how I can use my skills to kind of help out in that area. So I moved back to Minnesota, just trying to figure things out. And I ended up starting volunteering with the Athletic Letter Winners Club. But at the same time, I had a full-time job doing some sales. And I was doing well in the sales. I think inherently as athletes, because we talk and we know how to relate to people, we do well in that. But it wasn't something I was passionate about. I feel like I was taking away stuff from people rather than giving. So I would give more of my time to help out in a lot of different areas. And that will fulfill me even more. So that just kind of made me realize even more so that this is where I needed to be going. And because I was volunteering so much, the opportunity came to me through other people who I've been connecting with. They say, Steve, this is a job for you. I think you'll do well in here. And I was like, the Alumni Association. I never heard about the Alumni Association except for when they send me a letter and ask me for some money. And I'm like, I don't have any money. But I quickly realized, at least at our Alumni Association, I quickly realized that that's not the case. Like, we truly are an organization that tries to help people and engage with people and connect people to resources. So during my interview process with them, I learned so much and really saw how our values align, and just thinking about the potential impact that I could come in and make, with the organization, thinking more so from a bigger picture standpoint. My focus was narrow on student athlete. But as soon as I came into the Alumni Association, I saw that there are also other areas across the entire university where alumni are feeling like they're not connected to some of the things that are available. And I've been here about 4 years now. I kind of moved up the ladder very, very quickly just because I've been doing some impactful things, building out opportunities for communities to feel like they have a safe space. They have an opportunity to connect to some of the things that are available. And every day I go to work thinking I'm helping people, which is what I wanted to do in the first place.
Man, Steve, you just brought up one of the most important things that we always share in these shows, man. You just got to go help somebody. Like, by helping other people, you've been able to help yourself and put yourself in position. And like you said, man, so many athletes, including myself, I went into sales right away, man, just because I'm like, sales jobs are always hiring. They're always looking for athletes. But like you said, if you're not really passionate about what you're selling, you're just trying to get some money out of people instead of helping them, that never lasts for a long time. And so it's just such a great thing to hear in your story that helping people is what got you to where you are today, man. I got to ask, what is next? Before we get to that, I want to ask you what you're doing next, but also, like, can you just take some time to give some advice to those athletes who are in transition? I know you'll have some great wisdom for that one, man.
Well, definitely. I mean, it's a hard transition to kind of let go of a piece of you. But as I mentioned before, you have to understand those feelings and live in them. Don't just try to ignore them. I feel like it's like a microcosm of society. We're hit with so much trauma that so much of the time we just kind of keep about our daily lives and just like, oh, another one, another person is murdered by the police, and just thinking about it in that scale. But I think in order for us to truly grow, in order for us to truly impact and move on to the next things, we have to understand and live in our feelings, and first get to that point where we can internalize, but also let some of those feelings come out. You know what I mean? Like, let it out, let you understand what that is, because once you do that, you feel such a relief. You feel such a monkey is left off of your back, where you can start to heal. You can start to kind of move in the right direction. And I think then the next point is, you know, like I said, life is a process, and you have to understand that you're not gonna, you know, go from not making it to the pro levels to having a CEO level, executive level job where you're getting paid six figures. Doesn't happen like that. Like, you have to humble yourself. You have to be willing to keep learning and growing on the process. I think a big part of it is, and a fun part that I'm starting to realize, and some of the things that I'm starting to tell people is, like, the journey is fun if you make it fun. If you think about it in the regard of, like, I have so much opportunity out here for me. Let me think about the things that I'm passionate about, the things that fulfill me, and let me experiment. Let me prototype in these different areas of where maybe my passions are, and you're gonna learn some of those things you thought you wanted to do. It just doesn't fit. Then you can try something else. You have to just be willing to keep going and persevere through some of these things, because you're going to learn so much about yourself. You're going to learn so much about the things that you want to do. But at the end of the day, as we just mentioned, what's really going to fulfill you is thinking about your values, because your values are going to drive whatever direction that you go. And if your values are around helping people, and really the way the world works and the way capitalism works is that you need people. You need to sell to people. You need to market to people. You need to connect with people. So if you learn how to do that really, really well, and have the mindset about helping and impacting, it doesn't matter what you do. You will figure out a way to impact and feel fulfilled about the things that you're doing, that will give you that other sense of identity that you thought you left when you were an athlete. Because part of what you have in your book, I remember you saying, like, first thing you tell people is that you're still a role model. I needed to hear that, because, you know, I thought everybody was looking up to me. I was disappointed in myself. I'm not a football player. Nobody's looking up to me no more. Nah, that's far from the truth. I still hear from people. They say, Steve, I see your journey. I see what you're doing. I'm so proud of you, man. You just keep it moving. You give me energy. And when I hear that, that just makes me feel like I'm moving in the right direction. I'm helping the people that I'm supposed to be helping, even if I'm not very vivacious or being out there about it. People are noticing, and that's the way. And you move in silence. You do the things that are helping and impacting lives, and this world will be a better place, and you'll feel fulfilled from it. So a lot of gems there again, but I think that's the advice that I would give a lot of athletes.
Gems indeed, brother. Go ahead and drop the mic. This is the part where the smoke machines start going and you just walk off stage, man. You don't even, we just leave it right there. But yeah. Man, Steve, thank you for that, man. And you're already doing such great work. You alluded to it earlier, what your current role is and how you got to that place, how it's organic, just networking and making sure people are connected. What's next for you, man? What sort of things are you working on? Where do you see yourself going we can talk like near future, long term. I just want to hear what's on your mind moving forward, brother.
Yeah, man. I mean, that passion and itch to continue to help people will always be there. I think I'm moving into more of a leadership role within my organization so that I can really impact the direction of where we're going. Making sure that we are inclusive in every way, shape, or fashion in how we move and how we connect with people. Trying to break down systems, and that's a part of what I guess my personal journey is as well. Thinking about the ways that I can impact the small circles around me that would eventually impact the bigger picture in the world. And I also think, for me too, as I'm continuing to engage and build more of the connectivity and making people feel like, their voices are being heard, they're being genuinely connected with and helped out in the next phases of their life. A part of that too is still helping student athletes in some of their journey and transition into the things that they want to do. So I've been organically kind of doing that just by connecting with alumni and people that I know, and people reach out to me just like asking questions about a lot of different things that I don't have any responsibility for, but I'm always willing to talk. You know what I mean? I'm always willing to help and engage, and I'm going to keep that spirit alive. And I think, you know, as I continue to build out what I'm doing with this organization, you know, starting to build tentacles about how I can like personally start helping individuals in other ways and helping them to transition using some of the same principles that I'm learning and using and adapting in my life. I'm a design thinker. You know, for me, if people haven't read a book called Designing Your Life, this is something that I use kind of daily. It's kind of break, but we'll see.
Oh yeah, I can see it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Called Designing Your Life by Bill Burnett and Dave Evans. I prescribe to this notion of how to really make your life fulfilling, just because as a designer, and this is how design thinking works, as a designer, life is always a process. You're always willing to build prototypes and start to experiment. It's about action rather than thinking, you know, kind of putting the pieces together and then starting to try and test them out, thinking about the things that fulfill you the most, and having a humbling and learning mindset from it, where every day is a new journey. Every day is a new process. It's not a destination. You're not going to say like, I want this job and this is the outcome that I want. No, you just continue to build up for that. You continue to learn, and you continue to use those principles to kind of add to your life, so that every day is a new journey. Every day is a new opportunity to fulfill yourself. So for me, that's what I'm most excited about. Just thinking about what I'm doing with my current role, what I'm hoping to do in the future. You know, I got a family here, so just, you know, trying to build a legacy for them as well, so the world is a better place, you know, but definitely want to make sure that this transition piece, at least, is not as hard as it was for me, for those in the future, if I can help it. So.
Yeah, man. Well, you're definitely already doing a great job of that. You talked about the legacy piece with the family. You already are leaving a great legacy behind. And you're just getting warmed up, man. That's the best part about it. You haven't even really gotten started. You're just building the foundation for it. And it's great to see. I'm excited to have connected with you. I'm excited that we're now running together as teammates in the same direction. And I thank you for coming on and sharing today, man, because you dropped so many gems. We could easily go another few hours. I want to be respectful of your time. I'm sure we'll have you back on at some point, man. But
Absolutely.
Just for the time being, so people aren't mad at me, please tell them how they can get in touch with you. We'll have all of it in the show notes, but please just tell us the best place to get in touch and follow your journey, brother.
Absolutely. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram. My handle is Shed, SHED _AV. That's AVE. Shed is an acronym for my life. It's also part of my initials. It stands for striving higher every day. And I use that as my journey. You know what I mean? Just trying to continue to learn and get better every day. So you can follow me on those platforms and just kind of see my journey.
Man, you said striving higher every day?
Yes, sir. It's a tattoo right here too.
Boom! That's fire. I love it, man. I love it. That's my first time hearing that, folks. I didn't even know that about Steve. Got the Shed tattoo on him. Okay. That's real. Man, Steve, thank you again for coming on, brother. This has been a great episode of The Power of Story and Thrive After Sports with the man himself, Mr. Steve Davis. We appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you go follow this man. Stay in touch with this man. Let him know you heard him on these podcasts. And we'll see you on the very next episode. Appreciate you, Steve. Take care, brother.
No problem, man. Appreciate you having me.
Yes, sir.